I'm your host Rob, and today we'll be reading
I'm the son of a billionaire, part of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Ask me anything.
I'm 29 years old. My father is worth just shy of $1 billion, and he's on a rapid trajectory to be worth significantly more. I'll leave it at that and provide details as requested. I'll try to be as honest as possible, but obviously I'll be vague on identifiable details. I don't really have anyone to talk about this because of the uniqueness of the situation, so it's cathartic to speak openly about a subject that's obviously a bit taboo. I like to talk about it because it makes me feel more connected, and hopefully it will offer perspective to anyone who has preconceived notions on the super rich. Not that I don't expect to validate some of the stereotypes. Do your nearest and dearest know your worth, potential, or otherwise? Money never made the man, so describe yourself and your interests. Do you like toast? Do you despise cauliflower? Are you indifferent to Scrabble? And finally, how are you? Well, obviously my wife knows. We have one pair of friends who at least know our parents are very wealthy, since they've stayed with us at one of the properties. Everyone else hopefully assumes we have a little more than the middle class lifestyle we provide for ourselves. Toast, love it. Cauliflower, my wife's good at disguising it. Love Scrabble, but I'm better at fast-paced games. I'm about as stereotypical as a Reddit comes. White, male, introverted, gamer. I don't have much ambition of my own, and will almost certainly never match the enormous success my father has had. That leads to a lot of overwhelming guilt in my day-to-day life. I have to say, fantastic, ask me anything. Your answers are breaking the stereotype you mentioned. I really like your lifestyle. Your parents didn't give you a free pass with their money, and the pressure to make as much money as them. It seems it's only you, not them telling you to have more ambition. You look down to it. My question, do your parents pressure you to want more, make more money? In my situation, my father worked his ass off to have as much money as he does. I'm ambitious, not as much as him yet, but I do just have a little tiny bit of pressure from him. Well, I do think that my anxiety comes from my dad wanting me to do better. In part, as I mentioned elsewhere, I dropped out of college, I did terribly in school, had high overall intelligence, and tested well, but failed to put in the necessary sustained effort. I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and the difference since starting treatment has been profound. But I wouldn't dare tell my father that because A, he's convinced that it's a fake condition, and B, I doubt diagnosing myself because it just feels too much of a convenience of an excuse. I've been taught that there's no excuse for not succeeding other than working hard enough. And by that metric, I've largely been a failure. My dad's success and his hope for my success has been an enormous burden. But I think at this point he's generally giving up on me having the same drive as him. Personally, I believe the resentment comes from the mentality that someone sitting at the top of a company is paying their workers much less than they could easily afford to. The 1% sitting at the top of the Walmart chain, making billions of dollars, while his employees make minimum wage, living paycheck to paycheck, are struggling to pay a crappy old car and an apartment. When all it could take to throw their lives into chaos is for that car to inevitably break down. Knowing all that while the guy sitting at the top could sacrifice $1 billion and make all their lives much more livable. My father's businesses are very small. Each salaries maybe 20 people. I think most of them have found substantial success as part of the work, but I don't see the books. Part of the reason why he has earned so much money is because there's so few people among whom to split the profit. My dad doesn't work in the public sector, doesn't answer to shareholders, and doesn't want to lose what he considers to be an impeccable team, so he supports them very well. Something I've always wondered, if your internet or cable or phone or whatever goes down, do you or whoever would do that for you call the regular helpline or whoever company services your connection? Or is there a special super secret high priority line you have access to? I work for an ISP running phone support. I'm curious as to whether I may inadvertently get someone famous on the line one of these days. I actually would know because almost all of these things are handled by one person who is directly employed by my parents. We tell him what he wants or what's wrong, and he makes it happen. My parents don't need to know how. I figured it'd be something along the lines, but I also figured out it may be a chance to find out. Ah well, thanks for responding. And I do hope you find some semblance of normalcy and or whatever you may be looking for. Now we need an IAMA modern butler to a billionaire family. So my great-great-grandparents were very wealthy. They were in coal business, I believe, so the children, my great-grandparents, grew up wealthy and never did anything. And by the time my grandparents were adults, all the money was gone. Is this something you're worried about or have thought about? I cited a study in another comment that found that 70% of wealthy families lose status within one generation, 90% in two, so it seems pretty common. And it makes sense, not only are you dispersing it across more heirs over each generation, but you're also raising children who are increasingly unaware of the value of hard work and only know the luxury lifestyle. It's easy to see how it can be squandered. In sociology class the other day, we had an interesting discussion on how everyone seems to want to identify as being middle class. Poor people say lower middle class, and people who make 100 to 600k a year call themselves high middle class. It almost appears that there's a stigma to being very wealthy. You even said it in the description that it is almost taboo to talk about being wealthy. I'm curious, what is your insights on this matter? For example, why do you think it's taboo to be rich? Have you experienced any resentment from people because of it? What's something about the super rich that you wish the other classes understood about you as a way to try to make them probably resent you less? I don't like saying I'm rich because there's a huge risk of resentment. I feel like I should apologize for being the 1%. The sentiment is that the money shouldn't be ours, that it's a zero-sum game and we're stealing from the poor by being so rich. I don't want people hating my dad because of how much money he has. He worked his ass off to earn it, and it was all to provide for his family, as is the goal for most families. That he happened to earn a lot more in pursuit of that isn't something I think he should feel guilty for. He didn't take from the poor, he just had a lot of success. It's jarring for people to vilify him because his career just happened to earn him an extreme amount of wealth. That is not to suggest that he's better than those who had a lot less financial success. There's obviously luck and good timing contributing to where he is today. Resenting me, I can understand more because I did jack squat to earn it. But by the same token, I didn't choose this. So I don't think I should be vilified for something I effectively have no control over. What's one thing you never got as a kid? A gaming console, or as my dad affectionately referred it to, the Super No Friend O. Somehow computer games didn't fall in that purview though. So I had a top-end desktop and laptop anyways. Didn't stop me from being obsessed with gaming. The PS2 was the first purchase I made when I started getting my own paycheck. Seems like even though you had your own connections to wealth, it wasn't used as a magic wand to get you shiny things all the time. Did you learn the value of money and earning, or just having money? Sort of. We, my siblings and I, certainly didn't have a carte blanche, and I'm self-sufficient, currently outside of a growing and accessible trust fund. But they have a what's mine is yours mentality when it comes to enjoying their homes and possessions, which are plentiful. As we speak, my wife and I are staying in one of their massive homes for a stress-free weekend, and everything from the cars to the cook is at our disposal. These days, I've never asked for anything they said no, but I've never tried to push the limits. Are you any less miserable than we are? I have emotional problems like everyone else, but I don't have to worry about my paycheck. I don't have to worry about my retirement. I don't have to worry about supporting my child financially. I don't have to worry about medical crisis, ruin our family. There are so many burdens that I simply won't know. I wouldn't dare make a claim to the same sadness and difficulties that many people deal with. Wait, so does your father not share his wealth with you? We enjoy the material assets, get awesome gifts for Christmas, and each have a trust fund of $28,000 a year. But to have a comfortable life and income, we have to have our own jobs, for now at least. What do you think that's the case? $20,000 per year is less than pennies compared to how much money he has. I'm not OP nor rich, but from the bits I've heard, and there it's rather common for the rich folks to make the children live an ordinary life. You mentioned that you're doing this to feel more connected. From what do you do to feel disconnected, and in what ways? I don't want to tell anyone what my family's worth and what I will eventually have. I'm afraid of the dynamic that will result with friends, and it can go many different ways. On my part, I don't want to come across as braggy or entitled. And on their end, I'm afraid that friends could respond with awkwardness, resentment, expectations, etc. It sounds cynical, but I've seen it myself with my parents and some of their friends, so I generally don't tell anyone. But at the same time, it's becoming such a monumental part of my life and my future. I want to talk it with whomever will listen, if only to use them as a sounding board. As selfish as that sounds, so the facts and feelings are bottled up, and holding it back creates a divide. I want to talk freely about it, but I don't want anyone that I'm actually close with to know about it. Got any rich friends? That's the only outlet you have. Don't have to be billionaires, but enough to understand the consequences and issues of money. I had a lot of friends in high school who I only realized later were very rich. I didn't keep in touch with them, but I could probably have relate better to them. At the same time though, I don't want to isolate myself to that circle. I don't want to lose perspective of a normal lifestyle. What kind of schools did you go to? Were your peers wealthy? What do you do for a living? I went to a private school for grade school, a boarding school for high school, and then private university, which I eventually dropped out of. Since the familial wealth grew as I did, the peer groups evolved over time, but I never understood the extent of theirs or ours worth until recently. My perspective was more than a bit off growing up. As for my current job, I work a generic IT position with a standard salary. Nothing that will produce the kind of fortune my father's work has. Do you have any regular friends now? What's a Friday night for you? My wife and I are shut-ins, and we'll spend most evenings just watching shows and playing video games together. When we meet up with friends, we meet at the pub or go to one of each other's houses. A couple times we have taken some friends up to my parents' properties, but only after we've got to know them quite well. But generally, unless I'm my parents at the time, I live a very standard middle-class lifestyle. How did you two meet? High school sweethearts. How did you know that she was the one you were going to marry? I've never felt more comfortable being open and honest with anyone else than I do with her. I feel wholly and happily myself with her, which is a remarkable feeling. First time I'm jealous in this thread. Some things are worth more than money. Thoughts on economics and or politics, libertarian free market, radical socialism, social democracy, liberal welfare state. I generally lean conservative libertarian on fiscal issues, which probably isn't surprising. What are your thoughts on the Syria conflict? I'm not nearly knowledgeable enough to form a strong opinion. Oil prices did go up as a consequence though, so that's something. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for you? Good thing. It's such an enormous business that I think I can safely reveal that one. Did your father insist on a prenup for your wife to sign before marriage? How often do you speak to your mom? Which parents are you closer to? They suggested a prenup, but it didn't happen. My wife hates their wealth and wants no part in it, so I'm not concerned about her trying to run away with it. My relationship with them is complicated. I appreciate what they've provided, but the emotional connection has been poor. I wish I could feel closer to them. I just don't think they're wired for that kind of relationship. Dad's a workaholic, mom's a socialite. I'm the kid who didn't do everything perfectly. I feel like a pariah for a decade. Things are better now, but conversations are rarely more than business and small talk. What kind of car do you drive? 2014 Subaru Outback. Prior to that, a very used 98 Outback. Probably not the answer you were expecting. As for my parents, the primary cars at each property are Mercedes GLS and the SL Roadster. They have lots of others, but nothing too fancy. Mostly old Chevys and Ford cars, primarily driven by the various employees they have. What type of hobbies do you have? I have audio related stuff. You need to be a billionaire to afford some of the top of the line things and growing plants. Technology, media, games. I have an awesome home theater, which is my biggest piece of personal extravagance. Thanks for watching.